How's it going, everybody? Welcome back. Thanks for watching this video. Uh, Sometimes, a lot of times, I'm a little late to the party when things are hot, and I miss out. And I'm just kind of getting into this, getting this channel up and running. But I want to talk about toxic masculinity, a little more. Pardon my problem with speaking apparently right now. But, it's probably still a hot topic. It's been a hot topic for a long time, actually. I mean, I can sit here and say I'm late to the party. Probably what I mean is after the Gillette ad, I'm a little late. And, it was a big deal. And I watched the video. And it's a little disappointing that someone trying to sell razors is trying to tell men how to think. And, some people were outraged. Some people weren't. Thought that, some people thought, what's the big deal? And, okay, yeah, I can see both sides, and the point they're trying to convey is that, men can do better, I think is what they're trying to convey. And, I understand that, but, what I want to address in this video is this isn't new. People want to act like this has been going on just in this last, 50 years or whatever, right? Like, all of a sudden, men are these evil people, and it's from out of nowhere, and why, and what's going on, and this has been going on a long time. So, a lot of people think this toxic masculinity thing is new. It's not, and they didn't have a name for it back then. But it started in the Bible. It did. It says God created male and female, he created them. Okay, we're created, and when Adam stood before Eve, they were naked and unashamed. What does that mean? They had no guilt. There was no guilt. There was equality. God created them to be equal. He created them to be stewards over what he had created. And we were to live in harmony, work together. And that is what happened. That's what happened until we rebelled. When man fell, and because we rebelled against God, we ate of the fruit. And, everyone was called into account. The man, the woman, and the serpent. And, the man said, he blamed God. He said, the woman, the one you gave me, gave me some of the fruit, and I ate. I'm going to be honest right now, I should probably read it verbatim from the Bible. I'm not. So I apologize. He throws his wife under the bus, actually. Okay. Right? That would be toxic masculinity. And he throws her on the bus, and he blames God. The woman you gave me, instead of confessing what he had done, he blames his creator. And then, Eve says, the serpent deceived me and I ate. So, something of a confession, not to say her guilt was cleared, but she said exactly what happened. And, the burden fell on Adam. Said, cursed are you. And, you will bear fruit by the sweat of your brow. You will work the earth. And it fell hardest on Adam. But all of us were cursed. The man, the woman, and the serpent, all of us were cursed. And because we were disobedient, we rebelled. So, that's where the problem starts. There's no harmony between men and women now. I mean, there can be. It takes effort. It takes faith in God and what he's told us for that. But the point is that's where this all started. Is the fall of man. And from there on out, there's accounts of murder, men murdering, men raping, men doing all kinds of things that are not what God intended us to do. And it goes on and on up until now. It hasn't stopped. It's nothing new. This is from the beginning of our creation. Man comes to the Renaissance. And, even in the Renaissance era, there were drawings of naked men, naked women. Right? And they're innocent enough, but they're still pictures of nudity, okay? Which back then was probably no big deal. I mean, or it may have been. I don't know back then. But we come into American history, let's say, I don't know when specifically. I'll say for myself, the 40s and the 50s, the Marilyn Monroe era, right? Okay, Marilyn Monroe comes around. She's basically a sex symbol. Okay, and they take pictures of her, and for the time, what she wore and what she did was considered risque. I'm sure everyone knows the picture of the wind blowing up her dress, or whatever movie that was. I'm not sure. And the wind blowing up her dress, showing her panties. I'm sure that was very provocative for the time. Nowadays, it's like, well, what's the big deal, right? But the point is, that's where things start to kind of fracture, right? Is for whatever reason, and I'm sure it's because it got publicity, right? It gets publicity. People pay attention to it. Here's Marilyn Monroe. She's, exposing some of herself, and she's, she's a sex icon of her time. And you keep going forward in history, and it continues, right? You end up with Playboy magazine. You end up with, Hustler. A lot of these magazines, and it gets worse and worse. I mean, people might not think Playboy's that bad. Okay, whatever. I mean, when I was an unbeliever and I was young, I used to read it. I'm not gonna pretend to be something I'm not. This was back before Jesus was my Lord and Savior. Between Playboy, Maxim, Cosmo, a lot of these magazines, you've got women that look like sex objects, right? And it just continued and continued, and then all of a sudden it's an issue. Where was anybody back in the 40s and 50s when this was starting? Like, it was starting to ramp up, and where was everyone then, right? I mean, what coincided was people were starting to just toss out biblical values. They were starting to. This is at the same time they're starting to reject God's design for man and woman, and it's not a coincidence that as it started to get thrown out and cast aside, now all of a sudden you've got these magazines depicting women as sex objects. Some of them do. So what's left to go off of? What's left to set the standard of what's too much? If you're going to throw biblical values out, right? Well, if you throw it out, and there's the value of human life, the sanctity of how men and women present themselves, and how that's all supposed to be looked at. If you throw it out, now you have information. God made women. He made them to be lovely. He made them to be beautiful, but he didn't make them to be sex objects, right? But what do you have nowadays? You've got, and then nowadays I heard someone was telling me the explosion of pornography. Okay, now granted, that's generally involves a man and a woman, or it can involve multiple or same sex or whatever. But the point is, it's exploded, right? So for the sake of the conversation, let's say it's it's a man and a woman in this pornography. They're being treated as sex objects, okay? And the thing I don't understand is, you've got all these magazines, you got all this stuff on the internet and everything, and pro-women organizations, they don't go to battle against them. And if they do, I've never heard about it. Why aren't they out there saying, we're going to war against these things? Okay. Let's say NOW, National Organization of Women. I think they're still around. I don't know. I live in a cave. Okay, all right. Let's say they're still around. And they go out and they say, okay, we realize that, this pornography is getting out of hand, because that's the message it conveys to men, is that women are not any more valuable than as sex objects, and we need to combat that. We need to present a different message to the world, right? I promise you, you want to talk about if they asked for help or accepted the help, there'd be a lot of Christians that would say, what can we do to help? Because Christians understand the value of human life. They understand the value of the unity of a man and a woman, and how destructive pornography is to the family, and how it targets men especially. Because if a man if he sees that, then that's what he hungers for. That is what he'll hunger for. He won't care about a woman as far as how can she help me in life? How can we live together? How are we going to grow together? How are we going to die together? How can we raise children together? How can we have a home together? How can we have harmony? How can we have peace? How can we have the things that I promise you are the things of God? Okay, how can we have these things so that our lives will be long and full of days and full of peace and full of hope? they're not going to see that. They're going to see women, and they're going to think that it's okay to sleep with as many as possible, and that they're only sex objects. Okay, plain and simple. And that's coming from personal experience. It really is. Now, granted, I'm not like that anymore. But the point is, when back before I was saved, that's how I felt, because that's what you saw. That's what you saw. That's all you saw. Is you're supposed to go out and basically figure out whatever it is you need to say to sleep with women. Okay? Because what difference does it make? What difference does it? Doesn't make any difference. You need to get as much as you can before you die. Get it all before you die. Okay? That's the spirit of the age. One part of it. One part of the spirit of the age is get it all before you die. And I can tell you from experience too, it leads to pain and just sadness. It still leaves you empty. In any case, getting back to what I was saying, why don't you see these women's organizations going to battle against that? Why don't you see them advocating for magazines cleaning it up? I mean, again, not just Playboy, but Cosmo, and I imagine they would probably, now I haven't seen it, and I would hope I'm wrong, because they would be foolish to browbeat men about being bad, because that's, truthfully, they appeal to women, but their covers appeal to men. I mean, I don't know a guy that looks at that cover and doesn't think, oh, that's just for women. It might be, I don't know, but when I looked at the cover, because I wanted to verify a couple things. Last year's Cosmo covers, I think at least 10 of the 12 covers said something about sex, hot sex, and all this. And you've got a woman on there dressed as skimpily as they see fit. So what message are you conveying to men? In fact, what are you telling women even? When you're telling them basically, what's important is not just that you're with a man, with a husband, that what's the most important thing is just being a sex object. For some of these organizations is, what's your battle plan? What's your battle plan, and what's your end game strategy? Because that's the thing that's disappointing to me. Your battle plan's terrible. Okay, you're going in and you're just browbeating men about how, with the guilt stick, you're carrying in the guilt stick, and then you're browbeating them about how bad they are. We know we're bad. We know. You don't have to tell us. That was the whole point of the Gillette and why guys got mad. We know we make mistakes. We know that we're given to sin, whether guys want to call it that or not. We are depraved, and we know it. And sad, but the thing is, there's a lot of things out there that aren't helping. And then you come in, and then these companies come in with the guilt stick, and you're beating us over the head some more. It's not helping. It's not helping. If that's your battle plan, you're not going to win. You're not going to win. Don't attack the man. Go find out what it is that makes us have this struggle and this problem, and help us there. Okay? And then have an end game. What's your end game? And you better accept your end game. And this is why I don't think a lot of people have this end game. The reason I don't think they have an end game is because, let's say, women's rights march, whatever. They had an exit strategy. What would they do then? And I think that are like, okay, we're going to go out and we're going to start telling magazines that they have to stop objectifying women. However they do it, okay? They go out and they said, enough's enough, because yes, it's causing a problem for men. It obviously makes them struggle, and they, they just struggle with it. It makes them violent. It makes them this, makes them that, whatever, they say. Okay, so they go in, they move legislature, they do whatever it takes, but they accomplish their mission, right? They say, yes, we have done what we got together to do, what we organized to do, we've done it, we won. Then what? See, and that's, I think, is part of the problem too. They know just as well. What do they do after they're done? Basically, I mean, what's the director of the organization going to do? She's out of job, right? And I'm not saying that to be ugly. I mean, I would hope she would be. Mission accomplished. You would want to be out of a job, because then maybe you start another organization and you're successful at that. But the impression I get is because this has dragged on so long, is they don't have an exit strategy, an end game strategy. They don't know how to win. They don't, or that, or they don't want to win. I'm not sure what it is, but I hope they figure it out. And again, if this gets to someone that, that is serious about it, that wants to have a way to figure this out, I'm willing to listen. I really am. So I hope someone gets to the end game strategy, because if you're so worried about toxic masculinity, maybe you ought to start eliminating the things that are toxic. Poison doesn't get into. We don't just manufacture poison. Poison gets into us. We take it in. So go figure out how to get rid of the poison, and then you'll probably see toxic start going away. All right. Thanks. Have a great day. Like, share, subscribe. Thank you.